Welcome, everyone, and thanks for attending the 2021 annual meeting of the Baywood Owners Improvement Association, also known as BOIA. I'm Mark Grieco. I'm the outgoing president of the board of that organization. We typically hold these meetings in person, usually at the library or Baywood Elementary School. Due to the pandemic, this will be the first meeting we've done virtually. So as such, please excuse any hiccups during the next hour or so. The agenda for today or tonight, you'll hear from San Mateo Mayor Eric Rodriguez, as well as the President and CEO of the Chamber of Commerce of San Mateo, Cheryl Angeles. We've also added Sergeant Lupe Mejia from the San Mateo Police Department to address some last-minute questions that we received. The COVID pandemic has had an impact on many things. Our local schools have found ways to adapt using virtual learning. As examples, we've decided to include performances this year from Baywood Elementary, Burrell Middle School, and Aragon High School. I'm going to introduce the rest of the board and also highlight some of our activities. But before I do, we need some housekeeping items I'd like to cover. Two items. If you have any questions for either the mayor or Ms. Angeles, please use the Zoom chat feature to submit your questions. Secondly, there'll be a drawing at the end of the meeting for those that are still on for a chance to win a $50 gift card to the San Mateo merchant of their choice. With that, I'd like to introduce the board. Beginning with a little background on myself, I've been involved with the board for over 15 years and president for much of that time. Secondly, Michael Nash is our current president. He's been a really strong contributor to the board and has engaged on and led several key neighborhood issues. He is and has been our main liaison with various city agencies. Roger Ozer, one of our vice presidents. I'm sorry?
Could we just ask everyone in the audience to put yourselves on mute? That would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
So Roger Ozer is one of our vice presidents. He's been active on the board for a bit longer than myself. He's also a liaison with Baywood and Burrell schools. Lisa Nash, also vice president, has been instrumental in helping with communications and has instigated the Baywood Bulletin, which many of you receive monthly. She's also one of our library liaisons. Roger Dews is our treasurer, has been in this role for a number of years. He keeps track of our finances and serves as liaison for Aragon High School. Doug Nash, our current secretary, has led our Islands Captain program. Scott Long, past secretary, has taken a lead on our current proposed upgrades to Arroyo Park. Both Doug and Scott joined the board at the end of 2019. Margaret Neiman is the longest running member of the board, and as such, we view her as our historian. She is also one of our library liaisons. Teresa Rose is the newest board member and will be taking over Islands program from Doug. Our mission, basically the mission of the board of directors of the BOIA is to enrich Baywood neighborhood through interactions with city and through local initiatives. Some of the things that we do toward this end include selective donations to the 3 schools, as well as to the San Mateo Library. This past year, we made 2 additional targeted COVID-19 related donations. One was to assist the library in what they refer to as their MiFi program. This helps to provide wireless internet access to certain families in need for remote work or virtual school study. The second was we also donated to Aragon High School specifically for supplies needed for certain students for home study. In addition to these items we support, we also we actually have done two programs in the past. One is the neighborhood social and neighborhood yard sale, but both were postponed in 2020 due to the pandemic. We're hopefully they're going to be able to redo them later this year if conditions allow. We also published the monthly online piece we refer to as the Baywood Bulletin and a semi-annual hard copy newsletter you all should have received, and host annual meetings such as this. We serve as liaisons for the community with the city of San Mateo and drive neighborhood improvement projects such as our Islands program and the proposed Arroyo Park upgrades. We also promote the Spring Home Maintenance Award and the Winter Lights program. The next slide contains a photo of some of these past winners. All these things would not be possible without your support. The annual dues we receive from you allow us to continue this work we've done so far and more. We extend our sincere thanks to all of you, but extend a special thanks to those homeowners that have generated or have donated at higher voluntary amounts of gold and silver. With that, I'm going to turn this over to Scott, and he'll walk through the speakers and performances.
And before Scott starts, I'd just like to make sure everybody's aware we're recording this video, this event. If you don't want your face on the screen, please hide your video, but we just want to have a record for our program. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Lisa. Hello, Baywood. Hope everybody is enjoying your 8th Zoom call of the day, because this one will be the best one that you have. So my name is Scott. I have the privilege tonight of introducing our 3 schools. You know, the board spends a lot of time thinking about how we can help our 3 schools, Baywood, Burrell, and Aragon, with financial donations and other supportive activities that, you know, bring life to their school and to our neighborhood. And as Mark mentioned, this year, we came up with the idea of allowing the kids to perform. Since they can't do it live at school, we thought we would give them a platform, which is our annual meeting, and let them come up with a creative way to deliver some entertainment to us all in our homes. And so tonight we have the 3 of them here with us. And first out of the gate, we are going to have Baywood. And so what you'll see is from Miss Daly and Mrs. Doherty's kindergarten class, a couple of cute little songs to get us started tonight. Roll them, Zoe.
I'm Lori Doherty, and I teach kindergarten at Baywood, and I'm here with some of my students. And we like to sing a song first thing in the morning. And the song we've been practicing lately is the Mr. Sun song.
Oh, Mr. Sun, Sun, Mr. Golden Sun, please shine down on me. Oh, Mr. Sun, Sun, Mr. Golden Sun, hiding behind a tree. These little children are asking you to please come out so we can play with you. Mr. Sun, Sun, Mr. Golden Sun, please shine down on me. Sun, Mr. Golden Sun, please shine down on me. Oh, Mr. Sun, Sun, Mr. Golden Sun, hiding behind a tree. These little children are asking you to please come out so we can play with you. Mr. Sun, Sun, Mr. Golden Sun, please shine down on, please shine down on, please shine down on me.
Nice job.
We got feeling that they would.
fight in our school. So many kids having lots of fun. Playing and learning with everyone. So it's root, root, root for our Baywood. The spirit of helping is cool. And it's 1, 2, teachers for us at Baywood School.
This is next speaker will be Cheryl Angeles, representing the Chamber of Commerce. She's the CEO and president of that organization.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me here this evening. I have quite a few slides, and so I won't go through every single fact, but Lisa has a copy, and if you'd like one, she will give it to you. Next slide, Zoe. So I want to emphasize how important it is to shop locally, for our San Mateo small businesses and keep our tax dollars in the city. For every $100 spent, how much goes back into the local community? 45% if spent at a local business, 14% if spent at a chain store, and 0 if spent online. Next. So I got these slides from Jennifer Chen from the city, and so I'll just go through a couple of stats. Our most recent unemployment rate in December was 5.3 for the city, 5.8 for the county. While that's not ideal, it's a very big improvement from April when it was 10% for the city and 11.4 for the county. The city passed a commercial rent moratorium for small businesses, and that was in effect from April through September. The unpaid rent accumulated during this period did not have to start repayment until the city's state of emergency is lifted. Businesses will have a full year to repay back the rent without penalties or fees. The city worked closely with the Downtown Business Association to create weekly ads in the local newspaper, and they did a lot of social media campaigns to help promote businesses. Our city really has done quite a bit. When I saw the stats, I was very impressed. They have provided $400,000 in direct assistance to the San Mateo Strong Grant. And that was created by the county to provide grants assistance to small businesses. They set aside $120,000 in rental support for at-home childcare programs. Just under a third of the total San Mateo business, they received PPP loans totaling at least $325 million. And this allowed the businesses to retain more than 24,000 jobs, which equates to more than 40% of the San Mateo workforce. And 66 businesses in the city of San Mateo received grants from the county at $10,000 each. The one thing that I'd like to point out on this slide is that, they did install water-filled barriers and they did not charge the businesses so that we could provide some outdoor dining. And, that really helped the restaurants. And then promoted information about the county's commission cap for delivery platforms, very important for the restaurants. So very helpful, thank you. And so then this is from the chamber. So thanks to Lisa Diaz-Nash, she was our first donator to this program.
If I have my
we're launching it in the spring of 2021. It's a free business resource center to help small businesses. We will provide volunteers who have expertise in business acumen. They will help our businesses rewrite their business plans, financing advice, marketing, human resources, And, you know, with COVID right now, there are so many claims from employees. So they definitely need the assistance with the human resources, mentoring, coaching thing. And then I'm finished. That's good, Zoe. Thank you. We are going to have a talent show. We have 28 people that have applied for this, and we will be launching that as soon as it's safe to go to the Hill Barn Theater. We published a 2021 San Mateo City Guide that helps small businesses advertise at a low cost. We held our 25th Annual Business Awards reception, recognizing businesses in our community. We did collaborate last year and are doing so again for a Mother's Day brunch one stop at the Marriott. You just order your food, flowers, wine, and chocolates on our website and drive through and pick it up at the Marriott. We also, when the businesses first reopened in July, we had a fundraising event to celebrate the small businesses reopening during the pandemic with video spotlights on 2 downtown businesses. We have had several ribbon cuttings with our former mayor. We partnered with Rakuten and they offered 20% to consumers and it was free to the businesses. And Chow Now does free online ordering to help increase business during the pandemic. We held 5 grub gatherings, which is an informal way for people to gather socially distanced and support our local restaurants. We partnered with Vitalant for ongoing blood drive events at the San Mateo Marriott. We have one coming up March 4th. We need about 30 more volunteers to donate blood that day. We've partnered with the Virus Geeks for free COVID testing at the San Mateo Marriott. They have administered 20,000 tests, and it's also giving the Marriott exposure during this time. Our business referral networking groups are they're leads groups. So they have about 15 to 20 people in each one of those groups, and they refer business to one another. So that you can see that the business referral networking group number 2, they closed 1.2 million business. So it really helps them to assist one another and refer businesses. We also pivoted standard programs to virtual. We held 52 seminars last year for our businesses on a lot of different business topics. We had 9 town hall meetings for how to apply for the PPP loan, how do you apply to get it forgiven. So that was very helpful. We did have 2 networking events, and then we have formed a Latino chamber committee, and that is to support Latin and other minority groups that they do the same thing. They refer each other business, and they also have speakers. We did, in the midst of the pandemic, we got 40 new members, which is great. We did extend our renewal timeline for those that couldn't pay. And we also, we hold normally a business expo every year to provide opportunities for business to promote themselves. So remember, shop local.
That's it. Cheryl, that is a great message. Thank you so much. And I'm looking, we have 78 people on this Zoom call right now. They all have people in their households or friends. If every one of us went down this weekend and got a meal from one of the restaurants, bought something at one of the stores, used some of the services, just our neighborhood alone could have such a positive impact. So please, everyone, do everything we can, because their small business is the heart. And there's downtown, there's 25th, There's 42nd, lots and lots of merchants and restaurants to support. I myself am going to put a hint into my husband that we should do that Mother's Day promotion, Cheryl. So thank you very, very much. And everyone, please stay to the end, because as Mark mentioned, we're going to be doing a drawing for a $50 gift card to the San Mateo merchant of your choice. So you could get a little help in helping our merchants and restaurants. Thank you. And over to Scott.
All right. Well, thank you, Lisa. And Cheryl, thank you very much. Wonderful presentation, great content. And let's now go to our friends at Burrell. So I don't know about you all, but I love when I see Burrell kids walk into school, because so often they have an instrument in their hand. And I'm always just so curious how these concerts go for them. Well, tonight we get to see it live. What you're going to see is a compilation of a bunch of different bands that they have at their school. And I just want to call out Alyssa Goldrath really played a huge role in putting this all together for us. She is a language arts teacher and drama teacher over at Burrell. So thank you very much for your efforts here. And Zoe, roll 'em. Hear, hear. So fantastic job, Burrell. And for all those on that have children at Burrell, you should congratulate your children for a job well done on that video. And now we transition to the big boy in the neighborhood, the Aragon Don. I just love to work at the school. Every time I walk by the school, it just makes me proud. I feel strong. I see nothing but bright days ahead for this school. And we are so honored tonight to have the principal of Aragon come join us. Valerie Arbizu, you get the honor of introducing your compilation for our board and our neighborhood. over to you.
All right. Hey, thank you for having me this evening. I'm happy to get to put some faces to names and really just to say hi. I'm excited to be here. We are really looking forward to reopening our doors. We're getting ready to start bringing additional programs back. But if you've walked by the neighborhood or you walk by the school at all as you're out and about in the neighborhood in the afternoons, we have athletic programs going, and we're looking forward to bringing back some of our dance programs and drama programs and robotics in the next few weeks. We're really, really excited to see kids again. And our teachers are getting vaccinated over time, which is lovely. So I know that Zoe had reached out to a couple of teachers and got some information. I also found a few things from our drama teacher that was posted on YouTube, and then our Tri-M music group put a little nugget together for you guys as well. But before we get to that, I did want to take a moment to thank you for your generous donation at the beginning of the year. The BOIA gave us a lovely amount of money in order to help make sure that our students had materials to take home with them and have some hands-on experiences. And that was a big deal to us. And I wanted to take a moment and thank you for that. It helped us put science materials and art materials and dance materials and you name it into the hands of our students, and because we know that this is not enough for our kids to learn in this environment. So Zoe, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and click on what you've got. So there's a lot going on at Aragon. I will share a few more links with you. So if you're curious to see what's happening with our music program or with our drama program, I'll let you go ahead and watch that at your leisure. Thank you for clicking around, Zoe. I appreciate that.
You bet. Thank you very much for coming tonight. It's wonderful to see you, and thank you for sharing your time.
Great.
Mark, over to you.
I thought Michael was going to introduce me, Eric, but we can, Michael, do you want to take it?
Sure. Mayor Eric Rodriguez has been someone I've interacted with quite a bit for this since I've come to Baywood, and I'm really happy to have him on the council and be in charge of the council now as mayor. And I know he's very interested in neighborhoods, and I think that's a key theme for any neighborhood association. So with that said, Eric, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Michael, and Mark, you too, and the rest of the board. Thank you so much for inviting me here to be with you. It's a real pleasure. Before I get started, I just want to say that Baywood is maybe, I think, the 6th neighborhood that I've met virtually with in the last couple months. And Baywood always has been among the best ran neighborhood associations, and it's had the most participation out of all the neighborhoods I've interacted with. For example, out of all the virtual meetings I've had, this is by far the highest participation rate. And I think that really reflects very highly on the leadership of the board and you, the members of the Baywood community. So, hats off to you. I think you're a model neighborhood that all other neighborhoods in San Mateo can learn from. So I was speaking a lot with Michael about what I should be talking about. And so what we decided upon was I'm going to give a brief rundown, a very condensed version of the State of the City address that I gave last month. And I'm going to be going through it very quickly, some of the high level stuff. I highly recommend, if you're interested in hearing more about it, there's a link to that presentation. It's over an hour long. So I recommend you take a look at it if you're interested in any of this. So I'm going to give you a little bit of taste. And I think you already kind of got a taste of the state of our city just by hearing Cheryl Angeles from the chamber. And a lot of the stuff that I'm going to be talking about kind of blends in with that as well. So I mean, without a doubt, 2020 is going to go down as one of the most challenging years that San Mateo has ever faced in its entire history. And, uh, and we took a severe financial hit. Um, we, we were down about $14 million structurally coming into the year. And just this past year, we've seen hotel taxes tumble 25%. We've seen recreation fees go down by 23%. Sales tax has been down 11%, and the property transfer tax nearly 10%. And this really kind of it really created the need to take immediate action. And the city kind of responded in two ways, and kind of more in short term, more long term. And in terms of short term, the focus was on stopping the bleeding. And we immediately implemented a hiring freeze of $2.4 million. And that saved us $2.4 million. We also really looked deeply as a city for operational savings. And we right off the bat identified $1.4 million in operational savings. And then we also drew $2.6 million from our rainy day fund. And that's a key to how we're being able to survive this downturn. And it's something that I'm very proud of as a council member and now as your mayor, that we had a $54 million rainy day fund saved up for a rainy day like this, or a rainy year, I should say. And this is really going to help us get us through this time. We expect that we're going to be running a deficits for the next 5 years, and we're going to be drawing down on that rainy day fund from $54 million, and it should be around 20 million to 30 million when we're done in 5 years. Longer term, to get through this rainy day, we are renegotiating some contracts with our city employees, which is always a tough thing to do, especially in this time. We are looking at ways that we can raise revenues in other ways, and we've done that one way already by raising our hotel tax thanks to the voters, and that ended up being perfect timing, I will say. And we're always looking for additional operational savings. In terms of my priorities as mayor for this year, I mean, there's a lot of them, and it won't surprise you that the first one is just our general financial recovery, and really focusing on helping our small businesses, as Cheryl was saying, and how Lisa Diaz-Nash has done a lot of work in this area. And it is shopping locally. We are kind of, as a city, hindered on how much direct funds that we can provide businesses. And everybody's asking me, oh, what are you doing as a city to help small businesses? Show me your actions. But what I really like to convey to people is the city is spending taxpayers' money. And the best thing taxpayers can do to help businesses right now is buy from them, is to shop locally, is to maybe go out a little bit more often to eat more often than you might plan on. And that it's up to each and every one of us to do that. And I'm sure that theme's been beaten to death this night. But the reason it has is because it's so important. One of my personal focuses, and Michael kind of touched upon this in the introduction, is really bringing back the focus back to the neighborhoods and their needs. And that's something that's always been very important to me. And I think that with everything going on in the region, it's easy to lose focus on the neighborhood issues. And that's one of the reasons why I have a goal of meeting with every single neighborhood in San Mateo at least once, is because the issues that we're talking about in Baywood are a lot different than the ones we were talking about in Central or Sunnybray or Beresford. And I think it's really important to not treat San Mateo as one big group, when we really need to get down to the neighborhood level. Sometimes it's a street level. And that's something that I think is just very important. So that's probably, if we weren't going through COVID right now, that would be my theme as mayor, is bringing back the focus to our neighborhoods. And that goes to another priority is pedestrian and bike safety and traffic mitigation. Baywood has its challenges, but I can tell you that just from the emails I get and all the issues that we're getting in pedestrian collisions and everything, Baywood is about average. There are other neighborhoods that are experiencing a lot more pain at the moment, but I think we need to focus a lot more resources in that area, and we intend to, and the city council has made that a top priority, which I'm very happy about. Another thing is trying to take what opportunities this pandemic is giving us as a city. It's easy to just say, woe is me, and focus on just surviving, but there are several opportunities that I think are exciting, especially for a neighborhood like Baywood that's so close to our downtown. And I'm sure that you've been to our downtown at least once and noticed that you might be mistaken for being in Rome or Paris with our outdoor dining, which is something that that our city council and I personally have been advocating for years, but we always got pushback. Oh, where are people going to park, or what the restaurants where our sales might go down. There were just so many concerns of that unknown. Well, guess what? The COVID pandemic made the cost of testing that out very low, and it was almost a necessity to do. And lo and behold, 99% of the residents that I've spoken with about what we've done with closing down B Street and with the parklets has been positive. And we're really making a sincere push to make some of those changes permanent. I really think that 10 years from now, we can be walking down any street in downtown and see outdoor dining, or walking down at a pedestrian plaza on B Street. And we can really think back to this tough year, these tough years, and think, wow, at least something really good became of that. And I'm really looking forward to a more permanent situation in regards to our downtown. The last thing I wanted to just raise, that it's probably the least sexy thing I'm going to talk about, but it might be the most important thing. And that is, this year is a pivotal year for our general plan update. And our general plan is a very, very comprehensive plan that covers everything from housing to parks to transportation, anything that involves planning for a city. And that's updated about once every decade. And we are in the thick of updating that plan right now. And it's so important, especially now with everything going on, that residents get involved. They know about what this is, and they have their voice heard when decision makers are going to be making decisions that are going to be affecting San Mateo, not just the next 5 years, but maybe 20 years down the road. So that's my last plug on that. And when in my experience speaking with neighborhoods, I've really learned to not make the mistake of not leaving enough time for questions, because I can sit here and talk for another hour. I think it's really important, especially for those 75 of you on this call, to, if you have a question or you want to talk about any specific issue, let's do that. So that's all I have to say for my prepared remarks, but let's jump into the questions, shall we?
Excellent. Thank you, Eric, so much. If everyone could please put your questions in the chat so that all of us can see. Eric, I've got a couple of questions teed up that people sent us before the meeting, so maybe we can get going with that. Can you please talk to us about what some people are seeing as rising crime trends in the city? And what kind of crime is it? What are we doing about it? And what can we do as residents to try and help? And I know that Officer Lupe Mejia is also on the Zoom event with us. Lupe, if you want to sort of put yourself on the screen as well. So if Eric has any questions, he can share it with you too.
Yeah, so let me just say, every single neighborhood has had this concern, and I think that after the first five, I really think the best way to start is to have our officer talk about all the things on the ground that they're doing, and then if whatever that doesn't cover, like at a higher level or what we need to change, then I'll jump in. But there's I can't compete with somebody that does this every single day. And I know that she was just meeting with the chief earlier on and getting a higher level. So I'm gonna turn it over to her while she's on, and then we'll get back to me if that's okay.
Excellent. So, Lupe, if you could unmute yourself and come on and share with us what you know. Thank you so much. This is Sergeant Lupe Mejia.
I just did. Hello, all. Good evening. Again, my name is Lupe Mejia. I'm a sergeant with the San Mateo Police Department. And based off of what I gathered from the question is there's a thought that there's a rise in certain types of crimes. The trends, for the most part, have been continuous. They've been, I don't want to say the same, but our trend for the last several months has been, yes, we're dealing with the auto burglaries. We do have stolen vehicles here and there. Just what we're doing is, one, it's extremely important for our community members to make these reports when they see something, to call us so that we know what's going on with our community. But as far as what we're doing, we are saturating certain areas that are being hit at times. We recently, city approved license plate readers, which we currently are using at times to be able to focus attention on these stolen vehicles. Last week, we were able to recover, I want to say 4 or 5 vehicles, which was huge for us. Some of those included arrests of people that were in possession of stolen vehicles and or stole these vehicles. So just on my end, if I'm answering your question correctly, we do have, it's just very important for you guys to kind of be open with us and serve us with calls so that we understand more of the needs of the community and figure out how to problem solve and get our crime reduction unit in play and or traffic unit in play to battle some of the traffic issues or criminal crime type issues that are happening within our communities.
Great. Mayor Rodriguez, would you like to elaborate on that?
Yeah, thank you so much, Sergeant Mejia. One thing that I would just like to emphasize is that, like I said, every neighborhood has had some concern, whether it be specific areas or whether it be car break-ins or what have you. But I think that there's kind of a difference that I'm noticing, and I want to share this with you to make sure that Baywood is getting all their questions answered and getting all their issues addressed. And that is, I have found that the neighborhoods that are in the most contact with their area captains, the squeaky wheels, if you will, get the most oil. They get the most support. They get the most coverage. And if you're talking with the chief, usually when you talk about a squeaky wheel or oil in that analogy, you think of like it's a zero-sum game. But what I've found is that with our police department, they want to hear this feedback. So for example, I get these emails all the time. I've never gotten an email about crime in Baywood probably for the last 18 months. And I don't know if that's just because they're not emailing me and maybe emailing some other council member. But the point of what I'm trying to say is, I think that if you have these issues, it's really good to bring them up with your neighborhood association. It's really good to email your council members, email me, email the chief, because I have found that especially that Chief Barberini is very, very responsive. For example, in Beresford, they were really experiencing a lot of crime in a specific area where there was a shooting, and it was around the Hillsdale Gardens apartments. And my mom lives there, so I know that area very well. And he and his team really put together a very quick kind of SWAT team. I probably shouldn't use that analogy, but a very like an A team of groups to address that issue. And I've gotten very good feedback from that. So Yes, I think that during this COVID pandemic, we have seen an uptick in crime, and I really believe that our awesome SMPD is doing everything they can right now to mitigate that, but they need the residents' help, and so I can't emphasize it enough to communicate with your traffic officers and with your area lieutenants.
On that note, Eric, I just do want to add that aside from having that communication with the area lieutenants and getting a hold of our traffic unit, it's also equally important for you guys to, if community members see anything, not to wait to make reports, or at the very least call us so that we're in the know of what's going on. I know every now and then one of the questions that I saw was some people aren't reporting criminal activity like mail thefts. It's huge to report these types of crimes, because that's how we know, one, what's going on, but then two, in many cases, just like working patrol, in many cases, sometimes we do our proactive, we are proactive and do our proactive stops. We pull somebody over, and then all of a sudden there's like all these items that are missing, and they don't make sense. There's maybe one or two packages or whatnot. The reports that you guys make to us can give us clues to figure out, okay, what we see right now during this traffic stop, does this mean anything more than this person is in possession of just things that he or she might have bought? Or does this mean that something was recently stolen, like let's say it, in the Baywood community? So when it comes to communication, yes, let your area lieutenants or captains know, but also call dispatch directly when things happen. For those of you guys that have cameras and see something, call us. You never know what we might be able to do with that information. And in my opinion, the more information we have of our community, the better we can serve you guys.
Absolutely, Sergeant Mejia. And I wanted to put in a couple of plugs. Number one, I put the name, email, and telephone number of our area captain in the chat. His name is Ryan Monahan, and he is right on the spot. So please, tonight he couldn't be here because the police are having a forum at the same time, but he's very interested in speaking with all of us. So please do that. I'd also put in a big plug for Neighborhood Watch. And I'm biased because I'm on the board, but it's really, as Sergeant Mejia said, it's the neighbors who are the best prevention of crime. So I think we have time for one more, Mayor Rodriguez, and then we welcome everyone to stay afterwards, because Mayor Rodriguez has said he'd be happy to stay and answer a number of questions, and there are a lot of questions in the chat. So this one is coming from Mr. Wayne Feinstein, and he says, I'm surprised that you brush over the concern rate parking downtown. Downtown San Mateo is not Rome or Paris, no disrespect. Without parking, I believe post-pandemic, you'll see fewer people dining downtown and shopping. How are you planning to accommodate parking needs? Mayor Rodriguez.
Sure, thank you. Well, the first thing is nothing is set in stone right now, and we cannot tell the future. We do not know how much parking we're going to need. It might be more, it might be less. We do not know if residents are going to continue wanting to dine outdoors after the pandemic. Right now, the overwhelming feedback that I'm getting from residents, from maybe 9 to 1, is that they really like what they see right now. And if they have to walk a couple blocks to get that experience of being a pedestrian and not have to worry about being an automobile sideswiping them when they're walking on the sidewalk, that's a trade-off they would be willing to make. But the good news is that when we revisit this in September, the person that asked this question and the rest of the city of San Mateo is going to be able to participate in that dialogue, and we as a city will figure out what do we want to do? How do we want to move forward? We'll probably move forward with a series of tests, like prototypes, and try to see what's working and what's not. And we will have a short-term parking crunch for sure, because we were building a new parking garage. So I think that that's a very valid concern, and it's a matter of what type of downtown do we want to have as a city, and we all get to participate in that discussion. So no hard and fast decisions have been made yet.
And I think that's also a plug to get involved in the general plan, right? And
Exactly.
the discussions. So,
And we're going to have, after the general plan, we're going to have a downtown plan, if you're not planned out by then. And it's really going to focus on downtown. And I would argue that Baywood is going to be affected by that downtown plan as much as any other neighborhood. So now's the time. If you're looking for when is the best time to get involved in what our city is doing, now is a great time to start.
thank you. And please, everyone, stay afterwards. Mayor Rodriguez wants to answer all your questions and get your input. And one thing Carmela Martichoux reminded me to tell everyone is that to help prevent crime, to register your security cameras with the police in the NEST program. So if you just go to the San Mateo Police Department website, you can search for that. And it's a program where you just say, I have a security camera. It doesn't give the police access, but it just says if there is a crime in the neighborhood, they know which neighbors already have security cameras and they can ask your permission to review the footage. So that's helped several of us. Carmela said it helped something on her street. So that's definitely something to do. So please, everyone, stick around. We can go on for a long time, but I want to turn it over to someone who is the incoming president of Baywood Owners Improvement Association, Michael Nash, to tell us a little bit more about what BOIA is up to, and then I will come back.
All right. So you're screwing up my plan, okay? What I wanted to do to begin this is to highlight somebody who's very important. Ms. Zoe McKay, who's a senior at Aragon, has been a mainstay in putting this together and in helping us develop a social media campaign that doesn't look like a bunch of 60-year-old men was doing it. So, hats off to Zoe, and I wanted to give her a moment of fame. And we're sad that she's graduating, but wish her well going forward. So.
Thank you, Zoe.
So I think as the incoming president, I wanted to make some comments about how what we think BOIA should be doing. But first, I want to pay tribute to Mr. Mark Grieco. Mark has been on the board of BOIA for 15 years, and he's been president for a good many of those. He did take a hiatus when Diane Pappen was president of BOIA, and of course she stepped down when she got elected. But pretty much Mark has been running this organization for quite some time. So I asked all of the people who worked with him over this what they thought I might say, and it's amazing how consistent it is, because Mark is known for his effectiveness, his enthusiasm, and his pleasant manner. He was initially recruited by a fellow board member who worked with Mark professionally, and he was so impressed with Mark's skills that he encouraged him, maybe nagged him to join the board, and eventually Mark relented. But he proved him right, as he has worked tirelessly for our neighborhood. Mark has an engineer's mind and pays attention to detail. His ability to look at issues from all sides helps BOIA make good decisions. He gets the board to be better listeners, more open to new ideas, and thorough in our deliberations. We're glad we're not losing Mark. He will stay with us as a member of the board, but at this time we want to give him a round of applause and thanks for his service as president. So thank you, Mark.
Oh, Michael, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. It's a good group of people, and everybody does their own piece. So it's been great, and I've been delighted to be part of it. Thanks for the kind words.
You're most welcome. So looking forward, obviously we have to react to the pandemic, but we're hoping that we're going to see some significant movement here late spring, early summer. For those of you who follow road races, you might notice that some of the marathons that were closed are starting to reopen as early as June. So I think there's some hope that with a vaccination program that we'll be able to do some of the events that people enjoy so much. We do a yard sale every year. Many of you know it. And I expect that with all the sheltering in place and all the work people have done in their homes, there could be quite a few exciting items that people will want to pass on to others. The Baywood Social, also the ice cream social. It's been one of our most popular events, and we think it's the name confuses people a little bit. It's not just for kids, it's for people of all ages. We've added some sausages and pretzels from Worst House to appeal to the older set. We have live music and other attractions, and it's really a fun day. So we hope to bring that back because we think it'll be good for people to get out, meet new people, see old friends, and have some good old-fashioned fun in the neighborhood. Thirdly, our new board member, Teresa Rose, is taking charge of the Traffic Island project, and we look forward to continuing the program to ensure these visible parts of Baywood get the attention they need, both in terms of maintenance and certain improvements to what they appear. I think that can really help gel the neighborhood visually. Scott Long energized the board to take a detailed look at the historic site Arroyo Court. How many of you have visited Arroyo Court? Yeah, great. We went down there, we toured it, and we're working with the city to clean up the debris, they've added some fencing, and we're looking to plant some more colorful native flowers. So it's a much nicer spot to be in. We don't want to make it a thoroughfare, but we want it to be an even nicer place. We continue to work with the city to implement the changes to Alameda and Parrot Drive, that intersection that I know a number of you have asked about, and I think we'll put Eric on the spot on that in a little bit. But finally, and this is something that's close to my interest too, is the support for responding to the general plan process. You know, this is a long-term plan, and this is a very challenging time for California. You've probably recognized there's a great deal of discussion about the housing crisis. There's massive confusion about that. But I think the thing that is vital is that everyone in the city, every neighborhood is well represented at the planning department's outreach events. And I think we need to think of better and better ways of getting that, because it is not effective if nobody knows who's responding to the questions and if the people who are responding to them come from one group of people. This is something that every neighborhood in the city should have a perspective on that's representative of as many people in that neighborhood who as are willing to talk about. So I think that's something that BOIA will be putting some energy into. And with that, I want to thank you all for coming. Please contact us anytime during the year. Let us know if there's anything you want us to consider or address. We need your support. A neighborhood association is only as good as the support it gets from its neighbors. So with that, I will conclude my remarks and hand it back to Lisa, who will advise who might be the lucky winner.
That's right. I've got the fun job now. There we go. So before I do, we just thank everyone who's come tonight. I mean, we have almost everyone stayed on the whole time. So I'm taking that as a mark of how much you all love the San Mateo merchant community. But it's just been great, and we thank you. We encourage you to stay engaged. As we've said, we have something known as the Baywood Bulletin. So you can sign up for that on our website, which is www.baywoodhomeowners.org. You can find out about all the Baywood events we're doing, the latest on San Mateo news, and we encourage you also to join. You're obviously welcome to all the events, but if you join and become a member and pay membership dues, then you can help us continue to make donations to Baywood Elementary, to Burrell, to Aragon, to San Mateo Library. We are so blessed to have all these great institutions right in our neighborhood, so we need to really support them. Please also like our Facebook page, check out our Nextdoor pages, and just comment. Let us know, as Mayor Rodriguez said, what's on your mind, what you want to learn about. So we just want to be as interactive as possible. And then obviously we publish our paper newsletter twice a year with all the latest and greatest. So we're trying to communicate, come back and communicate with us and let us know what you'd like to see more of. So with that, I think we are ready to do a drum roll, please. Dum, 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 dum. And the winner of the $50 gift card to the San Mateo merchant of their choice is Kristen Sherman. So congratulations, Kristen. There we go. There she is. She held through, and it is absolutely our pleasure. So if you can let us know either now or afterwards which merchant you would like to get your $50 gift card from, I will go down tomorrow and get it for you.
Oh, aren't you sweet? Thank you. I'll have to poll the family.
Yes, yes, this is important. You do not want to just buck rank and decide what you want. So,
although if it were up to me, I would go to Baking Arts because I like that place.
Oh, there you go. That's fantastic. Everybody has their favorite. Maybe we'll do a survey in the next Baywood Bulletin and ask everybody about their favorite San Mateo merchants, because there are so many of them, so many restaurants and service establishments and retail establishments. But congratulations, Kristen. And then I guess we can just say that we will stay on. Michael, if you want to close this out, but please, everyone, anyone who wants to ask questions of the mayor, potentially Sergeant Mejia can stay on. We would love to keep this going. And we thank everyone we're just blown away by how many people showed up tonight.
Yes, thank you.
All day Zoom, and everyone's got so many things going on. We really appreciate it. We really thank you all for making Baywood just such an incredible community and neighborhood to be part of. So Michael, over to you to hand off to the mayor.
Yep. Okay. So it's Q&A time. So keep the questions coming. But I know we've had questions about the intersection at Alameda and Parrot. So Eric, have you got some updates for us on that?
I did indeed. This was one of the ones where I was appreciated a heads up so I could get the very latest. And so here's what I got. So the plans are to be completed next month, and the work toward getting the improvements on the ground is going to happen after that. The current estimate for implementation is going to be in spring, early summer of this year, which I will admit that was earlier than I was expecting. So thank you everyone for your patience on that. It's coming. Longer than I think any of us would have hoped for, but we're moving at the pace of local city government here, and I'm just happy that it's going to be fixed soon. You're on mute, Lisa, I think.
I am on mute. God forbid that should ever happen. So here we go. Let me go through. We have a bunch of other things that we want to talk about. One thing before I ask more questions, Sergeant Mejia also wanted to share the link to the police's newly up and running data transparency page, so you can get a better idea of what types of calls are being received and worked on. There's also a fantastic interactive traffic accident map that's up there. And I've got to give a shout out to everyone in the city for trying to be more transparent with what's happening. So if you ever have a question, go to the cityofsanmateo.org first, see if there's an interactive map, and then ask your questions afterwards. So that's great. So let's see, there's a comment by Pam McCarthy Hudson that's talking about Samaritan House. So let me broaden it, Eric, and ask you about how the city is working with our nonprofits to try and service all of our community during this difficult time.
Well, I mean, we just try to be as supportive as we can, much like with our small business community. We do not have endless funds to just give financial support as much as we would love to do that. So it is just making sure that we're just being as supportive as possible. So for example, like with the Workers Resource Center, the city it pays for the land and the rent for that. And it's really not, I wouldn't say the city, I mean, Samaritan House works on their own. They don't rely that much on the city. So it's not like there's a list of all these things the city does, but I think that just in general, everybody knows that the Samaritan House is if it's not the most important, most prolific San Mateo nonprofit, it's definitely in the top 3, and we try to do everything we can to partner with them. If you do take a look at the state of the city, I kind of gave a shout out to a couple of our nonprofits, and of course Samaritan House is one of them. And the number of meals that they have distributed and the number of lives that they've affected, not just in the city of San Mateo, but regionally, is just unbelievable. So if you have shop local is the number one message. If you're lucky enough to have some additional funds in this difficult time, there's not a better place to donate than Samaritan House.
Thank you, Mayor Rodriguez.
I'd like to add a little bit more to that.
Please do.
Just in regards to like the difficulties going on, and sometimes also with like our homeless people. We do have our homeless outreach team who works diligently like every day, trying to find people in need and providing resources. We work closely with Samaritan House and Life Moves to get them more resources, especially currently with COVID. So if you guys see anyone out on the street that may be in need of help or is wanting help, also please try to reach us. Our downtown unit and homeless outreach team do that on a daily basis.
Thank you, Sergeant Mejia. I know there's been some question about what update can you give us, Mayor Rodriguez, about unemployment in San Mateo, that Lisa Fox had read that unemployment was only at 5.3%, which is fantastic. But do you have any understanding of how many businesses have closed? I know Cheryl Angeles is not with us at the moment.
Unfortunately, we do not have great statistics on how many businesses have closed. And that's something that I think will, when everything starts and the dust starts to settle on what we look like when we get out of this tunnel, this COVID tunnel, I think we'll have a little bit better idea. But so many businesses are kind of small business, one person teams. So it's really hard to tell if somebody's just kind of taking a break or if they're working in a different industry or something like that. But I will think that the person who posed this question makes a really good point. And if this pandemic is not affecting everybody equally, and chances are, if you have the luxury of being on this call, if you have the great privilege of living in a neighborhood like Baywood, you are probably not experiencing this pandemic in similar ways as those that are struggling to find any work. And when they do, they're putting their health in danger, and they're struggling to make their rent payments. And if there's a rent moratorium is going on right now, they stay up each night not knowing when or how they would ever be able to pay the back rent, and they're afraid that they're going to have to leave the city. And so I think that it's just another reason why that if you're financially comfortable and with the stock market has never been higher, home values have never been higher, now is a time to reach out to other members of our community that are less fortunate and lend a helping hand because they really need it. And that is where an organization like Samaritan House is so vital, is because they enable that helping hand, and they make really good use of your donations if you can afford to make them. So the question was, how do I think it was, how do you reconcile? Was that, yeah, how do you reconcile? I don't think there's a way to reconcile. We are in a K-shaped recovery, and there's no doubt about that. And we really need to do what we can to lift those that are still, or that are struggling now and maybe struggling for years after the city is recovered. So
Thank you very much for that. And I think we all just have to keep it front of mind as well. So another question, Mayor Rodriguez, from Carmela Martichoux: is the city involved in a return to school plan for our community, similar to what's happening in San Francisco or Chicago? This is a tremendous pain point for families and students.
yes, so one of the most frustrating questions I get, one is our housing allocation numbers and what can the city do about those. The other one is what can the city do about opening our schools? And just so everybody knows, the city council and the city of San Mateo do not have any jurisdiction over our schools. That would be our school board. And so what I can say is that I personally, not speaking for the city, speaking for myself, am very supportive of trying to get our students back in classroom learning as soon as possible. I think that it's very important. I want to give a shout out to a near Baywood resident. I don't know if you guys consider Parrot Park part of Baywood, but Ken Chen, who is the school board president right now, really went out on a limb to really push the educators and parents to get together to get our students back as soon as possible. And there was a lot of pushback by the Teachers Association, but he really went out on a limb to do that. And I think the community really needs to support those efforts. In terms of what San Francisco and what Chicago is doing, I don't believe San Francisco city government is in charge of the school either. And I know that the Mayor London Breed is very frustrated, as am I, in that situation. But really all he can do as mayor is make that publicly known and try to make sure that the city is doing everything that we can possibly do to make it easier. But unfortunately, it's not that much because we don't run the schools. So it's also very important that when school board seats come up for election, to really get to know these candidates and really make sure, because those who is in our school board seats is very important. And it's times like this that kind of illustrate why it's so important. So that's about all I had to say on the school reopening.
Thank you. We had a follow-up question to your remarks about Alameda and Parrot. Is that a permanent fix, or is that a temporary fix? And if it's temporary, what comes after that?
I believe they're working towards a permanent fix. I'm not quite sure. I know that when it was first being proposed, they really wanted to look nice and have plants and all that stuff. So I'm not sure if that is in the final phase, but I do believe it's meant to be a permanent fix, and we're working our way towards a permanent fix, not temporary.
Great, thank you. There have been a couple of questions about, we talked about parking downtown.
Yeah.
But there's also about parking around construction sites, and the fact that there's so much construction going on in San Mateo, and it's having such a difficult impact on parking, on the quality of the streets, on just general quality of life. What can you update us about?
Well, I agree with that, that whenever we have building going on, that it creates a lot of challenges. Luckily, a lot of those challenges are short term in terms of parking, that is. One thing for those that this is a very big concern of, I think that we are going to see, we're not going to see the amount of building that we've seen in the last decade. Things are definitely going to slow down a little bit. But the fact remains that if you're building a building, you're gonna have construction trucks, and you're gonna have additional traffic while the building's being built. And what I try to focus on as a city councilman and mayor this year is to make sure that we're doing everything to take into account the quality of life of the residents, to make sure that the trucks are routed on the right roads, that the developers and the builders are following all the rules that they're supposed to be following, and trying to make sure that they get the construction completed as quickly as possible. That's what we're focused on now. But it's really hard to build a building without incurring some of those negative impacts.
Mhm. Okay, sort of a somewhat related question. What can we do to provide more open space to residents, particularly people in condos and apartments? Everyone needs open space during this time.
Yeah. Well, that's a really good question, and it's another challenging question. I mean, one part of it is land is so expensive. It's really hard to buy new land for more parks. So the way that the city has been creating open space in conjunction with our population increasing with building is to add that open space to new buildings, which kind of creates a lot of the challenges that we just talked about in the last question. But that is, for every large building that comes up, there has to be some portion of public space, and the rules are kind of complicated. But like, for example, on the Passages building that's going to be coming up where the Circuit City is right now, that has a huge public space in the middle as part of the design for it. I also think that, but there are detractors. There are some people that don't think that type of space counts. What we're just trying to do is, in a very land constrained city, we're trying to make sure that if we are allowing our population to increase and we are building more housing, that we're making sure that we have at least some additional public space to go along with that new housing.
Okay, thank you. And there's a lot more discussion about that, I know, coming up.
Yes.
So another question from a resident is about speeding cars and cutting through Baywood.
Yeah.
And what can we do? Can we put more stop signs on big Baywood streets? Like,
yeah,
slow down the cars? What do we do?
Yeah. Okay. So one thing, when we were putting, and I see, and it looks like Sergeant Mejia would like to jump in here. So one thing I will say is, as I mentioned in my personal priorities for this year, one of the things that I really advocated strongly for at the goal setting session, and I had, I think, the full support of the council, which I was very happy with, is looking at ways that we can just reduce the speeds on our neighborhood streets. And I'm not sure if I haven't heard SMPD weigh in on this idea, but this is more of a political thing. One of the things that we are trying to do is make sure, at least around schools, reduce the speed limit to, I think, as low as we can go. I think it's going to be about 15 miles per hour around any school. And there are certain council, and there are a couple of council members, myself included, that is looking to try to reduce speeds on all neighborhood streets that we can. Now, of course, there are some arterial streets like Aragon, Parrot, Alameda, where there's going to be limitations on what we can do. But I think that the tide is turning, and I think residents are wanting, and neighborhoods are wanting to take their streets back and are willing to incur the negative costs of having to drive slower and maybe taking a couple extra minutes to get to downtown or wherever you're going, to make sure that everybody is doing that way, is driving that way, so your kids can play on your street. I, not too long ago, my cat got out once, and he was hit by a speeding teenager that was driving down my slow street, Sonora, not too far from you guys. And we need those cars to slow down, and that's a perfect segue to Sergeant Mejia, who can talk about some of the things that they're doing to help us get this traffic to slow down.
Yeah, and our on that note, prior to COVID, when the schools were in, and with the school resource officer unit that we had at the time, we would focus in on schools to be a presence for the schools before and after school as best we could. We also, like I mentioned earlier, we do have a full traffic unit that focuses on target areas, right? Aside from, like, serving the whole city, we do have a sergeant that compiles all the complaints. And so we can figure out where exactly certain needs are. Being that Baywood is one, I will speak with the traffic sergeant tomorrow just to see if, one, they could put a traffic officer at certain times. It's also a really good idea for you guys to call us or call the traffic unit and let us know, hey, I noticed that, the morning hours between like 10 and 12, constant speeders go down the street or whatnot, so that we know kind of when to tackle certain activity and what times.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We have another question about street reconstruction. And there's been a lot of construction going on in Baywood recently as part of the Smooth Street program.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the plan in general, and what do we have to expect in terms of street reconstruction here in Baywood?
Sure. Okay, so a long ongoing initiative that the city of San Mateo has, its Smooth Streets program. Lisa, you're very aware of it, serving on Major S Committee, and trying to do everything we can to make sure that we are repairing streets on a regular basis so they don't fail. And what a failed street is a street that's beyond repair, and you end up having to spend about 4 times as much cost and bringing it back to true standards as it would cost to continually repair the street. And we do have a website that I bet Lisa would be able to dig it up on our city's website, that talks about when your street would be able to is set for improvement. Now, what we have going on here in Baywood, finally, one of our streets that are our city's streets that was in very disrepair finally got its time to see the doctor. And when they started digging into it, you never know what you're going to find under these streets. And what they found was, let's see what my notes say, because I talked to the traffic engineer. They found that the isolated soft soil patches in it. And I'm not quite sure what that means, but it sounds bad. And they were not expecting that. And so what they ended up having to do to make it right was dig deeper, and it was a lot more intrusive work than they expected to do. But they didn't want to just pave it over without the foundations under it being secure. So it did take a lot more effort. Now, part of what the city tries to do when this is going on is their first inclination is to make sure that all the homeowners who are going to be directly impacted by this construction are aware. And as far as I've spoken with Michael about this, and as far as I've heard, the city did a pretty decent job of notifying the residents who lived directly on the impacted streets. Now, where I think we could have done a little bit better job, and this is something I've spoken with our public works director about, is maybe the neighboring homes that maybe weren't directly impacted but they were indirectly impacted because they had to all of a sudden overnight had to change the route that they were going through your neighborhood. So I've gotten a commitment by our city manager that they're going to try to do a better job at that next time. But I will say, hopefully this doesn't happen in Baywood again, but if it did, I think that this is another area where the neighborhood association is just really important, because they play a vital role in getting this information out. And that's why you should join your neighborhood association. And that's why you should be checking your emails when they give their bulletins, because hopefully if this happened again, if you lived on a couple streets over and weren't directly impacted, you would have a better idea of what's going on. All that being said, I'm really happy that Baywood is getting these streets repaired, because it's been a long time. And it really stinks now, but in a couple months, you're going to have a perfectly smooth street. You're not going to have to worry about this, hopefully, from the time your whole time where you're a homeowner in Baywood. So
There's a lot of love in the chat for this program too, Eric. I think a lot of people know that it's, it might be a little disruptive, but boy, it's going to be so much better.
yeah. Nobody likes to have their street ripped out, but I will say, after doing these things, I make a lot of mention to them on other people that have just as bad, or other neighborhoods and other streets that are just as bad, but how are having to wait. I really consider the folks that are inconvenienced right now to be very lucky, and I'm very happy for them. And by this summer, it's going to be a smooth street.
Yeah, and I put the link in the chat for the Smooth Streets program, but you just, in general, go to the cityofsanmateo.org and search, and you can get all of that. So I guess one last question, but before we do that, I know that Sergeant Mejia has to leave to go to yet another effort, and we just wanted to say thank you so much for jumping in at the last minute and for being so helpful. And please thank Brian Monahan, thank all the other sergeants and other people in the PD, because we are great supporters of the San Mateo Police Department, and look forward to working with you and being your eyes and ears in Baywood.
Yes. Thank you so much, Lisa, for inviting me. I am going to type and leave in my contact information in case any of you guys have any questions. And it was a pleasure talking to all and getting to meet some of you guys.
Excellent.
Have a good night.
Let me put in a pitch for Neighborhood Watch. It's really, we should get a lot more of that going in Baywood. But thank you, Sergeant Mejia. Have a lovely evening.
And check out our data transparency page, just so you guys know what we're working on and what's going on in your city.
Yep, absolutely. And share suggestions, as the sergeant said.
Have a good one.
Thank you. So we had one other question from one of our attendees. Do you know how long the contract is lasting with the company that handles parking tickets?
Yeah, it's an ongoing contract. I don't think there's any plans. It's not like we have like 2 more years and then we're going to do something else. Parking enforcement is another one of these really interesting things where I would say when I was first elected to council, probably 50% of the emails that I got, they weren't necessarily from west of El Camino, but they were from other parts of the city, were frustration with parking enforcement. And so we as a city tried many different things, and it's very expensive. It's very too expensive to hire these works and have the pension of these workers and everything. So our city tried something to outsource it to a firm that specializes in that. And we definitely experienced our share of hiccups when we did that. And there was definitely a cultural clash. It wasn't a perfect rollout, but here we are, about a year later, I believe. And I am starting to see now complaints that, these guys are too aggressive. They're ticketing people. And it's kind of like, just from my perspective, I mean, I've gotten tickets and I can't stand it. And I got a ticket for parking the wrong way on my street that I parked the same way for the last 10 years. And we've gotten that taken care of. They've loosened that a little bit. But the fact of the matter is, it's like, it's really hard to have it both ways. We either have rules that people need to follow and there's going to be consequences in not following them, or we don't, but we live with those consequences. And I really think that with all the fine tuning that we are doing with our parking enforcers, I think it's getting a lot better. And I think we finally might have a long-term sustainable solution where we're getting that sweet spot of being able to have laws and that they're followed, yet we have an organization that knows the culture of San Mateo and is not sitting there 2 seconds after your meter expires and is ready there to write you a ticket. And they're definitely not incentivized whatsoever to give tickets. There's a kind of a conspiracy theory out there that's not just with San Mateo, that's just in general, that, you know, they somehow get paid on commission or something like that. That's not the case, I can assure you. If anything, we dismiss so many tickets. Don't quote me on this, but if you dispute something, we give the resident the benefit of the doubt, and we're dismissing a lot of tickets these days, especially when we're in COVID and especially when we're in the transitional phase.
That's good. We will hold you to that. We will watch. So someone wanted to know, they've heard that there's going to be a street light test coming up.
Yeah, I heard that from Michael. I will first off say that this is a very project that's very near and dear to my heart, because I was the council member that was put the brakes on this program, because I was seeing the type of lights that they were putting on that was like kind of like mall lighting in front. And I'm looking outside my window right now, and I have this nice soft glow of a street lamp that's been there since the 30s, and they want to put this like glowing orb that's like brighter than a supernova. And I really wanted them to. I advocated very strongly, and I work with my neighborhood in Aragon and Baywood to slow down and give residents the option, or have Public Works give residents the option and look at what our choices are, because we're going to have to live with these lights probably for another 70 years. They're not going to be changing again. So I knew that a test was coming. I was not aware that it was coming this soon. But I think it's a good thing. What I can envision happening is they're going to do it again and give us more choices. Hopefully the lights, this is my personal opinion, I'm speaking as a resident now, hopefully they're warmer and they're not as bright. They're kind of similar to our current lighting, but it's more energy efficient and easier upkeep and easier to maintain. That's what I would prefer. But everybody's different, and hopefully we get everybody's feedback, because there's these primarily affect Baywood Knolls and Aragon and Parrot Park, or maybe less so Parrot Park, but it's very important that we get these right, because we're going to have to live with these, and these are the lights we're going to have to walk by at night and trick or treat by.
So here's one open-ended last question,
Okay.
and we will close it out. What other questions have you gotten since you've been to so many neighborhood association meetings? What are the issues that have been brought up? What are the questions?
It's really, there's the overarching ones, always about crime right now. It really depends on the neighborhoods, and this is why it's just so important. A lot of neighborhoods that, of course, Bay Meadows right now is very concerned about the event center and all the traffic that that's bringing in. We have with the traffic underpasses about to be opened, and in adding a new corridor from east and west San Mateo, we have Bay Meadows and Beresford's very concerned about those traffic patterns. Neighborhoods like North Central are more concerned about the pandemic and its immediate effect on its neighborhood and rents and its population being able to stay in the city. I think that there's overall a big concern about the general plan in general, and how are we going to plan for as much housing as the state is making us plan for, and how do we make that fit in with a very divisive issue of Measure Y that was passed by our voters. So how do we reconcile that? That's another issue that's been brought up. Those are pretty much the common themes I've had, but there's always one or two kind of neighborhood issues that are only specific to that neighborhood.
Okay.
And I
Okay.
think all of that is a good indication of why putting some effort into the general plan process is so important, because every one of those topics is addressed in that plan.
Absolutely.
Okay, well then I think we can say thank you very much to Mayor Rodriguez. Thank you so much, everyone who stuck with us. And obviously there's a lot of interest in all the questions that have been asked. So thank you everyone for asking those questions. And we would encourage you to send the BOIA board feedback on what you thought about the meeting, what we should be doing, you know, what we do well, what we need to do better. Now, how can we serve our community in a better way? And you can send that either go on our website, baywoodhomeowners.org, and fill out the contact form. It's very easy. You can show up at our monthly board member meetings, which are the second Tuesday of every month at 7:30. And you can contact us by email at baywoodhomeowners@gmail.com. Check out our Facebook page, Nextdoor. We really are trying to get as much engagement with the community as possible because you all know what's going on and what we should be doing. And as Mayor Rodriguez reminded us just in the chat, please check out his 2021 State of the City. I sat in on the original one, and it really is incredibly comprehensive, and I think we all would learn from watching it. So with that, let me turn it over to Michael Nash as the president to sign us out.
Well, there's not much left to say, but thank you all for coming. I thought it was a great meeting. I thought we had great attendance. So thank you for all your time and attention. And please keep the communications flowing. We really need to hear from the neighborhoods. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Excellent.
Great job, everybody.
Good night, everyone. And thank you to Baywood Elementary, Burrell Middle School, and Aragon High School. We are so lucky to have them in our midst. What great performers.
All right. 5,
Good night.
4, 3, 2, 1. Good night.